So Aftersun is the story of Sophie and Callum, a daughter and father who are on vacation, or at least in this kind of flashback. It turns out the whole movie is set in the present, and Sophie, adult Sophie, is reflecting on her life. This vacation she took with her father, Callum, played brilliantly by Paul Mescal. God, I don't know where I was going with that. Yes, Paul Mescal.
King
Sophie,
of indie cinema right now.
Yeah, he's a big deal. He got Gladiator 2 off this movie. So yeah, he's no joke. He's coming out with Foe. Saoirse Ronan's in that. That's going to be out soon. Frankie Corio plays Sophie, young Sophie. The two of them, she's about, 9, 10 in this movie. The two of them go to Turkey. Mm-hmm. They're both from Scotland. They have cute accents. And they're just staying in a hotel room, and they're enjoying like a week away, right? Down by the pool, getting some sun, maybe hanging out with some of the older people, like the older kids at the resort, and just kind of enjoying the time away. And that's 95% of Aftersun, believe it or not. Like that is nearly all of the film. It's stunning how subtle it is, because it's a movie about the things that aren't said. It's a movie about the things you don't see. And that sounds like a challenging thing to understand, and it is. So we don't do spoilers on this show, but before I ask Andy what he thinks and we start to get into it, I do want to say this disclaimer. If you are curious about Aftersun, I don't know if there's anything Andy and I can say to say like what you might want to experience with it. So maybe you should go watch it and come back. Like I said, we're not spoiling anything, but I think it's kind of a special movie, and it's surprisingly intimate, and it's surprisingly sincere. So with that, I just want to throw that on the front. Andy, what did you think of Aftersun?
So I was really suspect going into this, or skeptical rather. Tons of buzz last year, tons of Oscar buzz. Paul Mescal was nominated for Best Lead Actor for this movie. And I was strangely turned off by all of that buzz, because you hear that about every Oscar-worthy film around Oscar season in the fall. Everything is like the greatest thing with the greatest performance, and it's gonna win all the Oscars. And a lot of times, that's not true at all. A lot of times it's just kind of a chore. I've even heard that about films coming out this year. About a month ago they were hot. Now they're like, oh, people are like, well, what's kind of the big deal? And Aftersun was one of those movies I just was not really excited to see. It kind of looked like a bit of a chore. And I was really blown away for it in a way I completely didn't expect. It reminded me a lot of like The Lost Daughter, which is not a film I particularly enjoyed, and I thought it would be a little bit like that. But it really is something different. It's a very, on the surface, simple coming-of-age tale of young Sophie remembering this vacation with her father. But we learn a lot about both people and their situation along the way, and flashes into adult Sophie's life, which really tells so much. And this is really what bold cinema is about, because so much of the emotion and meaning of the film is told visually through a very simple story. Like I said, it's a girl and her father on vacation in Turkey for a week. It's not, and it avoids a lot of pitfalls. It doesn't have like big speeches, big monologues, big ugly cry moment, or these kinds of things you kind of expect from movies like this. It's so profound and skips a lot of kind of Oscar baity stereotypes.
Yeah, there's about, I'm going to say maybe like 8 minutes of footage in like this 90-minute movie. It's quick, that if you were to cut it out like with a razor and just play the movie back, you'd have no idea there's like subtext. And that's what this movie's about. It's subtext. It's about Sophie reflecting on her life and trying to understand the man that was her father based on what she saw and kind of knew of him at a young age. Because it becomes obvious as you're watching Aftersun that like something is wrong with Callum. Something is not right with him, but you can't figure it out. And you, the audience member, an adult, are very much trying to seek that answer, right? He's almost like your protagonist. He's her dad. He's the one other person at this resort that they know. They're there with nobody else. They have no family friends. It is just the two of them. So naturally, you want to get to understand them. And you start to find out over the course of the picture that, okay, him and his mother divorced. He doesn't live in Scotland. He's working on a project at home in London, I think is where he has a broken wrist, which already is, you're thinking in your head, okay, what happened there? Like, you want to know the story. And Aftersun is kind of this brilliant exercise in not really giving you the answer, giving you breadcrumbs and saying, hey, you kind of draw your own conclusions to what you think this might be. And then before you know, whisking you back to Sophie in modern time and seeing that she is struggling with the exact same questions you are struggling with. And in that way, Aftersun forges a connection between its character and its audience that like very few films do. Very few films from a first time feature director, Charlotte Wells, which is incredible, in 90 minutes on no money. Like it's bananas how well this is put together. I don't even know how they storyboarded certain parts of it. We were talking about when we were watching. I was like, I don't even know how it came together in post. Like it's baffling. It's lightning in a bottle. Like I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel acted most of the time. It's like you're watching real people. It feels just so kind of calm and natural. Plot wise, we know we get small insights into Callum's life. He's doing his best to be a good father. In this weekend, he's paid for this, this weekend or this week-long trip in a resort in Turkey. He's always around Sophie. He's making sure she's got, sunblock on. That's that kind of thing. He's a really good father on the surface, but then we also kind of learn a lot about him that's under the surface, that he doesn't have a very good job or doesn't have a stable job, doesn't really have a lot of money. He's not around a lot. He seems to kind of drink a lot. He tells his daughter not to smoke, but he smokes, in kind of private. But he is doing his best, and he's on this great vacation. He's at Sophie's side constantly. He's not just like being neglectful. He wants to make sure that she has not only a good time, but that he is there with her. But we know that things aren't perfect, kind of underneath the surface. And Sophie, 11-year-old Sophie, doesn't really see that at the moment, but as we see glimpses into adult Sophie and her kind of looking back, which is another brilliant thing about this film, is that it's really a memory. So everything we see may or may not have really happened.
Yeah, and alternatively, like Sophie is not one note either. Like while her father has kind of more going on than meets the eye, like so does she. Callum encourages her to spend time with some of the younger girls at the resort. Oh, good. Why don't you go play in the pool with those girls? She's like, no, those are babies. Like, I don't want to spend time with them. She wants to hang out with the older kids, right? Who are like playing pool or kissing in the bathroom, right? Like, and she wants to get older and grow up. And in that way, I think she wants to, try to have real human connections, which is part of the reason like her and her dad get along fine. But ultimately, like, there's a bit of a struggle sometimes, right? Because he thinks that she's maybe a little younger than she is, because that's the last time he saw her when he's been away, because mom are divorced. Maybe she just doesn't feel like she gets him. And then that like is juxtaposed really, really brilliantly again with like just these very, very brief, almost just like simply thematic flashes to the future. They're hardly even visual. Experimental almost, like when you see a Sophie looking back and trying to think, oh, hold on, let me try to revisit this space. It's really great. Like it makes an 11-year-old girl like a surprisingly interesting character. Looking at the IMDb trivia, it says Charlotte Wells auditioned over 800 girls for the lead role of Sophie before settling on Frankie Corio. Wow. So it's well deserved. Yeah, like they worked at it. And also I should say, nearly the whole film shot on location, which is amazing. Tons of outdoor work, tons of sunlight, lots of natural light. And what's so damn interesting about the way it's shot is there's a ton of shots that just linger for really long periods of time to let you think, right? Let's let you stew on what you're seeing, let you just kind of draw on the visuals. Sometimes even Sophie, which most of the film is told from her point of view, will kind of drift off in bed after a long day at the resort, and the camera will just kind of pan slowly over to Callum out on the balcony smoking a cigarette, or I don't know. I don't even really know what he's doing. And it's weird. It's this moment where you step out of like you step out of where we're supposed to be, because for the most of the film we're following her, and every once in a while you just kind of get this peek at who this guy is, or maybe who she thinks he was, right? Like that's part of the interpretation of it. makes it like, again, I don't know how they shot it, but boy, like it comes off just feeling so natural and human. Like it's really stellar.
Yeah, really great cinematography. There's an amazing shot where you can see Sophie in the reflection of the TV which is turned off, but also in the mirror that's in their hotel room. These kinds of shot, the experimental stuff that you kind of see in adult Sophie's timeline. It's just an incredible use of memory without explicitly being like a hazy flashback, because they have recorded footage, because Callum seems to be really interested in videotape recording, and this takes place in the 90s. I don't think we mentioned that. So he's got an old kind of VHS recorder, and he's recording some things. So we have live footage of things that did happen, but then there's a lot of like Sophie filling in the gaps, for better or for worse. And it seems like everything is always positive, and that's kind of how memory is. You kind of only remember the good things. And so it kind of calls into question some of the things that happened. Did they happen exactly how she remembers? Did they happen better? Did they happen worse? We don't really know, and there's no way to tell, but it's a fascinating look at how memory affects our emotions.
I think the best kind of art is the kind of stuff you can revisit months or even years later and come away feeling like totally different than you did the first time. And part of what makes Aftersun, I think, so interesting is that's exactly what it's kind of trying to be. It's interpretive, right? Based on your experiences with your parents and your experiences with how you read people. And you may read Paul Mescal as totally differently motivated than somebody else. Andy and I actually got together to watch this on, we watched Paramount with Showtime. That's where we saw it. Yeah, they've got it. I think any Showtime package will just, if you get Showtime on Hulu, I think they'll have Aftersun on there. They got to deal with A24. But about halfway through, I stopped to go to the bathroom and I said, hey, here's what I think is going on. And he was like, oh no, I think it's this. Two totally different reads on the same character, like crazy, I think it's fascinating, like how simple Aftersun is and just how effective it is. It is, again, lightning in a bottle. Not only do I think it's an incredible work by Charlotte Wells, I don't know if she could do it again. I'm gonna be honest. Like there's something really special here. Like it's really unique. So I'm really glad we got to talk about it. Any other thoughts, Andy, for recommendations?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention how one of the things that it sets up a lot of things that you think are going to kind of happen, or that would happen in a kind of coming of age film. And there is this constant sense of danger, which never really comes to fruition. I think a large part because us as if you watch it as an adult, you know about all the dangers of people and strangers. Sophie runs in, she kind of hangs out with these older kids that are like 15, 16, that are like a little bit too old to be hanging out with her. There's a boy that likes her. They do this sequence of kind of some self-defense between her and her father, and like you were kind of waiting for really bad things to happen because as an adult you're aware of these, and child Sophie is not. But the movie doesn't make the mistake of just giving us a sad something or other to base some sort, it doesn't throw in a tragedy, which a lesser movie would have done, but it has that fear of that, as an adult, is always there. And I just thought that was a fascinating story element that again, all these kind of dangers or possible dangers are hinted at but never really come to fruition.
Yeah, to underline the vulnerability of like a good coming of age story without exploiting it. It's a little like how I felt. It reminds me of like 8th grade, or even something like Thoroughbreds, like in a much more cynical fashion, like Thoroughbreds. But Thoroughbreds is rad. Y'all should go watch Thoroughbreds. But overall, I think it's a special feature, and I'm glad we watched it. Andy, would you recommend Aftersun?
Absolutely. I've been able to think of nothing else but this movie the last couple of days. It's really stuck with me. Really fascinating artistic film. Again, examining a fond memory of a vacation with this girl's father, and kind of what that means 10, 20 years afterwards. And, what was the man she remembers really the man he was? Was he more? Was he less? Just told in a really brilliant way. There's so many people who would have fumbled this. A studio would have thrown in some really, really unnecessary elements, but highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Aftersun's super special. You should totally go see it. Like I said at the top, I don't want our review to dissuade you. If you're at all more interested, since we started talking about it, please go check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you're less interested, maybe give it a chance anyway, because maybe we did you a disservice. It's a difficult film to talk about because you don't want to. I don't know. You don't want to project what you think is going on into how other people will experience it, but keep an open mind and go in just kind of thinking of these two on vacation and kind of see where you end up, because just hopping on the internet and seeing what other people like have pieced together is fascinating, and seeing what people saw as, oh, well, I think this, and well, no, that this happens. I'm like, oh, man, that's kind of true. Like it makes this film interpretive in a way that like so many movies aren't nowadays, and that makes Aftersun a really special feature. Great work from Charlotte Wells. Cannot wait to see Paul Mescal again. Rock solid all around. And that's our show. God, that's our show for the week. Off script episode, God, what, 228? Good Lord, Andy, we're flying through these things. What are we watching next week?